One of the things that I love about Kickstarter is that it gives us creators more freedom, right? We can add all the bells and whistles. We can make this big, beautiful, gorgeous book with all of the extras that we love, and it makes it feasible for us. Because otherwise, printing an 8 book set, if it was just me printing it, there's no way. There's no way that I'd be able to do it. So Kickstarter gives me the chance to say, hey, if enough people are interested, I can make this big, beautiful thing.
Do you love science fiction and fantasy books? You found yourself in the right dimension. Welcome to the greatest podcast in the multiverse, where each week I talk to science fiction and fantasy authors about myth, magic, and the infinite possibilities of storytelling. I'm your host, Herman Stuernagel, and I'll be taking you on a journey with some of your favorite authors, helping you to get to know them and possibly uncover some new literary gems along the way. Ready to explore? Because on this show, every conversation is a doorway into a different world. Hello, my friends. I just wanted to hop on here real quick before the interview. I've got Starr Z Davies coming up. We have a great conversation. It's the second time she has been on the podcast. If you want to catch my first interview with her, go back to episode 2. We had a great conversation about the Powers Legacy section of her series. We talked a lot more about the plot and the characters and all of that. So if you are interested in that storyline, head back there and check out that episode. It's a great conversation. We also chatted about her Fractured Empire series and some other projects that she's been working on. So do go back and check that one out after you listen to this one. Today is all about Kickstarter. Starr and I had a great chat, a really in-depth chat about her Kickstarter campaign that is launching today if you're listening to this when it goes live on May 14th. Please do check out her Kickstarter campaign. The link is in the show notes below. I don't often do these intros anymore. I don't find that they're necessary every week, but I did want to chat a little bit today about my upcoming Kickstarter campaign. If you're interested in Kickstarter at all, or if you're interested in my cozy fantasy novel, The Bartender Between Worlds, my Kickstarter goes live on May 25th, and I just wanted to give you a little bit of information about what's happening there and what you can find. So I'm really excited. I'm launching a special edition of my 10th novel, The Bartender Between Worlds. I really wanted to do something special for this edition. If you heard my episode with Daniel Kuba, you'll heard me talk a little bit about that book and what's involved. And again, if you have not heard that interview, go back and listen to that. You can also listen to me chat about my book on the YouTube channel, Case Hidden Shelf. If you do not follow her channel, please head over there and follow that as well. I'm going to be a guest on her show, and I'll be chatting all about the book. But my Kickstarter campaign, as I mentioned, I'll be launching a special edition hardcover. There will also be a deluxe edition ebook and paperback versions available in the campaign as well. So if you're not a hardcover collector, there'll be something for you there too. The hardcover will be gold foil on the dust jacket. It'll also have a special design on both the dust jacket and the case back, and all editions will have artwork that have been created by my wife. My wife, Nettie, is an artist. She has sketched out some lovely illustrations for the book. They're going to be color in the hardcover editions and black and white in the paperback deluxe edition. There will also be exclusive drink recipes. The market edition will have some drink recipes, but the special edition will have even more. There'll also be an opportunity to get printed drink cards, printed copies of the illustrations. There'll be stickers, bookmarks, all sorts of things. Lots of goodies that I have in store for you. And one of the stretch goals of my campaign will be to get my audiobook produced. So I'm really hoping we hit that stretch goal. I'd really love it if you would head over to my Kickstarter page, follow the page to be notified when it goes live on May 25th, and support the campaign if you can, and if that's something that interests you. Also on May 25th, I'm going to be doing a live launch of the campaign. Joshua Del Toro is going to be teaming up with me, and we're going to be doing a live TikTok feed, 5 p.m. Pacific time on May 25th. We'll be making a couple of the drinks that are in the book, and we'll be doing a question and answer about the book itself. It's going to be a lot of fun. I hope you can join me. For those of you that are already following the campaign, thank you so much. It means the world to me, even if you don't end up purchasing the book through Kickstarter. Having a higher follower count on the campaign really does help Kickstarter's algorithm, getting the book more visible to more people. So I do appreciate that. And that's all I've got this week to share before the interview. So please stick around. I have a great conversation with Starr, and we will get right to it. So welcome back to the greatest podcast in the multiverse. I'm super excited today to have another repeat guest with us. Welcome back, Starr Z Davies.
Hi, I'm glad to be back.
Glad to have you. How have you been?
Busy.
Yeah,
Very
I believe
busy.
it. Yeah, and we'll get into a lot of what you've been busy with lately. But yeah, it's been. I was surprised when I was looking at the calendar when we did our last interview. It's been just about a year since we've chatted. I think we did the interview. The interview came out, I think, in September, but I think we recorded it
Yeah,
in
I think
July.
I was
So
one of your first interviews.
yeah, you were episode 2. So so this will be 30, I think, is the episode this will be. So very excited to have you back.
I'm glad to be here.
So for listeners who did not catch that first interview with us, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and your writing journey so far?
Yeah, so I'm Starr Z Davies, and I write or have written dystopian that kind of mixes fantasy and sci-fi together. And I've done some historical fiction, and I am almost ready to launch into the world of just straight fantasy. So, and my writing journey so far has been intense. I didn't realize how much I had done already until I started looking back at what I've done. And
Yeah.
so my first book, Ordinary, came out in March of 2020, and I now have 7 books published in the Powers universe, and I have my 4 historical fiction fantasy books, and I have several others that are written that I haven't hit the publish button on yet. So I've actually done a lot in just
Yeah.
4 years.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how much it was until I actually looked at the numbers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's. I know you had. I saw you had commented on one of my TikToks I had posted that I was coming with my 10th book. You were like 10. Wow. I'm like, wow.
I know.
You've got a couple more out
Well,
than
your
I do.
first one came out right around the same time as mine.
It
And
did. Yeah.
so, yeah, we've both been pretty prolific, I think.
Yeah. It's been a busy few years for sure. For
Right?
sure. For both of us. Yeah, so you've got 11 books total published then, and a few. Does that include your like companion novels and all that as well for the Powers
No,
universe?
because those ones are not officially published yet. So
Right.
you have Miller on your shelf there, and that
Yeah.
one is a special edition. And I'm releasing his story as an ebook only in July.
Okay.
And then the other 2 companion novels are going to come out in March of next year when I hit the official 5th anniversary for Ordinary. So,
Nice. Nice. Yeah, you've got so much on the go. Very cool. So we chatted last summer. At that time, you had just released Desolation. Is that correct? Is that the right one? Book
I think
4?
that I had just finished the series. I think that
Yeah.
Invasion
Invasion.
was
Okay.
just dropping.
Yeah, sorry, I mixed up the order about which book comes in which order. But book 4 you had just released.
Yes. Yep.
So what has changed for you in the last 10 months?
A lot, but also not a lot. Um, so I wrote 3 companion stories to the Powers universe,
Mm-hmm.
and well, I guess it's more than 3 if you count the Kingdom of Tides book,
Oh, right,
because that has 3 different stories in it also that are connected to the same Powers universe.
right.
And so I wrote all 6 of those, I guess, in that
Wow,
time. Plus, I wrote over 400 pages of like bonus content for the special edition box set for the Powers universe. That's hopefully coming soon.
wow. Yeah, so all of that has been kind of like exclusive content that you've been putting together.
Yep.
And that is a lot of exclusive content. I mean, we'll get into a bit more about the upcoming Kickstarter, but why did you decide to go in the direction of writing all this, exclusive content rather than putting something else out into the more public domain?
Part of it is that I'm ready to put a bow on this world, this universe, and to move on to something else.
Hmm.
And so I just wanted to wrap everything up and and put forward all of the content that I could possibly put forward for it so that I could feel satisfied that I had given it everything.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And do you feel that you're at that point, or did other stories come about through through the process?
Other characters are always talking to me.
Yeah.
Other people always want more attention, but I'm I think I'm satisfied with where it's at, and I think that everything has been tied up really nicely. Celeste's story is kind of going to be the icing on the cake for everything. So that one is it's going to finally tie everything back around together again
Nice.
and show what the past was and what the future will be and and it ties everything up.
Very cool. That will be an interesting one for sure. I look forward to reading that one. So why don't you tell us a little bit? We'll get into the Kickstarter, but first, I'd just like to recap a little bit about your motivation for writing. Obviously, you've caught the writing bug. You've written a lot in the last 4 years. What's your motivation behind it, and what's the why in your storytelling?
My motivation behind writing is that I can't not do it.
Mm,
I actually get bored when I'm not writing.
right.
I've tried to take time off, and I found that a week is about my max. And after a week, I'm going stir crazy again. I can't
Mm-hmm.
not write. So so that's the thing that keeps me going. Some
Yeah.
people, everybody has their hobbies, and mine isn't so much a hobby as it is a drive that
Right.
I have to do it. Um, yeah,
Yeah, I can definitely understand that. The those voices in your head that don't leave you alone, that talk to you about these stories that you have to get on the
yeah,
page, right?
yeah. The stories and the worlds, it haunts me if I don't do it.
Mhm. Yeah, and I know I feel for myself as well. Um, I mean, there's so many stories I would like to write, and there's only so much time to write them in that
Yeah,
I feel like if I'm not getting any progress on them, that I'm falling behind because I realize we have finite amount of time to
yep,
to get these stories out. So um, yeah, I'm happy to hear that you feel the same way because yeah, I if I'm sitting, I can't sit around too long anymore before I'm needing to get words down.
yep.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's not just me.
No. How does that affect your editing? Like, are you able to focus on your editing if you're trying to put new words down, or are you able to do both at the same time? Because I know some writers do.
um, I don't think it really affects my editing too much. I mean, sometimes there are things that get added in. I know that a lot of writers, as they're editing, they tend to trim their books back. And I think that I've become pretty notorious for adding a lot more content in.
Right.
But I think that the final product speaks for itself, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm not just putting in fluff. The
No,
things that
for
I'm
sure.
adding in are essential to the story. Otherwise, what's the point in putting them in?
Yeah.
So
Right. Yeah. No, I understand. I laugh because I'm the same way. I'm an underwriter, and when I go through my editing process, I'm adding, my the book I'm writing now. It started off. I was going to write a 20,000 word novella. By the time I got through my editing process, it's like 65,000 words now.
yeah, I can't write
So
anything that's that short, right? So
yeah,
I completely understand. I've tried doing short stories, and I can't. And even the one that I do have a short story out there, it's kind of a quasi steampunk short story, but it's more about
yeah,
our own memories and what can we trust with our own memories.
right,
Um, but even that, like people read it and they're like, this feels like there should be more, right?
Mm. Yeah.
Well, there could have been, but I didn't want to make it into a whole big thing, because if I had really opened it up, it probably would have been a series all in itself. And I just wanted to write the story
Yeah.
and move on from it.
Yeah, no, I get that, and I mean, good for you for being able to, because that's how Fractured Orbit came about. It was supposed to be a short story. I wrote Infinity. I'm like, no, there's a universe here, so I mean, it turned into a 5-book series of its own. So yeah, the stories get away from us. So let's pivot. We talked a lot about your Power series in our last interview, and especially the Powers Legacy. Let's talk about your Kickstarter. Can you just, I guess, give us an overview about the Powers universe, an overarching idea of what it's all about, and then maybe kind of break it down from there?
So the Powers universe takes place over decades, and it's a post-apocalyptic future of our own world, where people have developed powers, and then there was this huge war that happened that caused an apocalypse. And so in the first series, the city of Elpis, the people that live there, they think that they're all that's left, because as far as they know, the rest of humanity was wiped out when the apocalypse happened. And they all came together, and they all used their powers to build a new society and to work together. And so that's kind of, where that story starts.
Right.
And but the main character, Eugene, throughout the whole thing, he has a hard time buying into the idea that they're all that's left. It just seems like a huge waste of space, and the odds, like, he just statistically doesn't believe that the odds are that they're the only thing that's left. And so
Right.
he never really bought into it. Even at the very end of that series, he mentions that they can't possibly be all that's left. And so it kind of becomes like one of his missions as he grows into adulthood, which we don't really see much of in the books. Um, but he has kids, and so the next series is about his kids, and his kids actually leave the city, leave the safety of the city, to go out and basically try to find out if the world is recovered enough for them to expand, and if there is anybody else that's out there. And there is, and things get ugly. Get very
Yeah.
ugly.
Right.
And so that's kind of like the whole universe is just the story between these generations of the family. And yeah, it's it's a lot of fun. It's There's some really funny moments, and then there's a lot of very heartbreaking moments.
Hmm.
And things get pretty intense. The
Yeah.
dial turns up throughout the whole thing. So
Right. And then your companion stories are basically kind of you take kind of different characters and tell us kind of a bit more about those characters and their backstory. Is that
yeah, so they're origin stories for them. So
right?
three of Eugene's friends when he's in Paragon Tower in the first series. One of them is Miller, who is his best friend, and Miller is just a snarky jerk. You hate that you love him, but you do. And so it's how his story and how he ended up in Paragon.
Hmm.
And then there is Enid, who is there at Paragon with Eugene, and her story about like when her powers developed, and how they developed, and how she ended up in Paragon, like what happened that drove her into the arms of Paragon.
Hmm.
And then there's Celeste, and Celeste's story is very unique. It's very different from everybody else's. First of all the rest of them are told in first person, present
Okay.
tense. Hers is not.
Hmm.
Um, you can't really get inside her head in the same way that you can with other people, and because her brain doesn't function like normal people.
Right.
So her story kind of had to be told in third person, a little bit more distant
Okay.
than you get to be with everybody else. But she is all over the place in time. And so her origin story is very complex and it skips all over the place. And so you
Yeah.
have to, I so much so that I actually have a warning before her story that says that, you thought you knew what to expect, but just you have to keep a very open mind when you read this because
Yeah.
her story is very different and it's everywhere. So you have to pay very close attention to details in her story.
Yeah. Yeah. And for anyone who has read your series, I mean, it'll be pretty obvious why that is, I
Yeah.
think. But for those who haven't, it's hard to get into that too much without spoilers. So
Yeah.
if you're curious, you're gonna have to read the Power series to find out.
Yeah, you can't really explain Celeste any other way.
No,
You have to experience her.
absolutely. Was it hard going back to do those origin stories? It's been, I mean, it hasn't been a really long time, but you've written a lot of books in between the original Power series and the companion books.
So it wasn't too hard to get back into their headspace.
Mm-hmm.
The hard part for me was the details, right? Like making sure that I didn't screw up certain details and I kept things fairly consistent
Yeah,
because found as I was writing them that I kept having to go back and be like, wait, does that line up with what happens over here? And so like making sure that I wasn't screwing things up too bad when I was writing it. That was the
yeah,
hard part was keeping everything in line with where they end up later.
right. Yeah, okay. Um, and I don't want to dwell on this, I guess, on this too much, but the process. How was the process of revisiting the first series now that you had a few under your belt? Like, are you comfortable with how things turned out? Was it? I guess what was that? What was that like revisiting your first series?
It was kind of neat actually. Like I felt like I was going back on the adventure again
Hmm.
and I would listen to the audiobooks
Oh,
like while
nice.
I was out doing things so that I could get ideas for inspiration like as I was expanding on it to add the bonus content in and I'm like, "Wait a minute, what if this happened?"
Hmm.
And so there's actually like new POV characters that you get in the original Powers trilogy that the original trilogy is Eugene, right? Except
Yeah,
for the third book is Bianca, but the first two books are just Eugene.
yeah,
But now you get to see from all kinds of different people, and most of them are fairly short. I think that Bianca gets like a couple of chapters of her own,
right,
but most of them are kind of just short interjections that I think add a little bit more depth to the story.
right. Yeah, yeah. That must have been a cool experience, and I do have my first series. I will need to be going through some of that process again of remembering what I wrote 4 years ago in order to finish off that series. But
Yeah, I want to read that last book.
yeah, it'll get here. I need to quit following rabbit trails wherever the muse kind of leads me into different books. So
That's really
um,
hard to do.
it is, yeah, yeah, it really really is. But you know, I'm gonna after I've kind of took a little bit of a break here, but once I get finished this cozy fantasy that I'm working on now, it'll be finishing Fractured Orbit and then finishing. I'm not allowed to start anything new until I've got everything else on the go finished. Um, but so why don't we tell us a little bit about the Kickstarter that you're running and the box set and what I guess is all included in that.
So the Kickstarter campaign, one of the things that I love about Kickstarter is that it gives us creators more freedom, right? We can add all the bells and whistles. We can make this big beautiful gorgeous book with all of the extras that we love
Mm-hmm.
and it makes it feasible for us.
Right.
Because otherwise, the cost of printing an 8 book set, if it was just me printing it,
Mm-hmm.
there's no way that I'd be able to do it.
Right.
So Kickstarter gives me the chance to say, hey, if enough people are interested, I can make this big beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And so I went all out with it. There is the box itself, right? Everything, all 8 books come in a box, And they have it's a reversible dust jacket on the hardcovers. So one side is the 5th anniversary covers. So in March of next year, all of the books are going to get the new cover.
Oh,
But
cool.
only the Kickstarter books are going to have the bonus content in them.
Right. Okay.
And then the Kickstarter one, the box set also has the reversible dust jacket, so you can flip it over and you have like this huge panoramic artwork, and when you line it all up next to each other, it shows you like one solid piece of art across all 8 spines of the book, which
Right.
is something I have wanted to do for a long time. Probably,
Yeah.
I think before I even wrote my first book.
Oh, really?
Um, I just have always loved it. I saw
Yeah.
the first time I saw something like that was actually on the Wheel of Time.
Right.
You
That's the
can
one I was
buy the
thinking of
special
too.
dust jackets that go on the Wheel of Time books, and it's just like this beautiful continuous artwork on the spine of the
Yeah.
book. So when it's on the shelf, it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
And so I always wanted to do something like that. And now that I am done with this universe, I wanted to put it all together in that kind of a set and make it available for anyone that's interested.
Hmm.
Um, but it has more than just that, too, right? Like there's custom sprayed edges that are going to match the covers of the books with the emblem of Elpis on the the artwork also,
Hmm.
and
That's cool.
the dust jacket, or not the dust jacket, the case wrap on the book has just a normal image on the front with the simulation tiles in the background, and then on the back side they all have a different symbol on them and a quote from each book, and yeah, plus all of the bonus content that's in it, and there's artwork in it, and just I packed these things with everything that I could. So
Yeah.
anyone who loves all the goodies and the bells and whistles on this is gonna love these books.
Yeah, for sure. No, that sounds incredible. Now, how how much time have you spent gathering all of these pieces? Because that sounds like just an insane amount of work.
Yeah, it was. But I have a an artist who she's been she's not officially an artist. She's actually a barista who likes to do what she calls doodles. But you can see these images
Seen
back
some of
here.
those doodles,
Those are
yeah.
not doodles.
No.
Um, and so she started sending them to me. And then when I brought this up, she flooded me with. Apparently, she had been doing these all along,
Oh,
and
wow.
so she had this whole collection
That's
of
incredible.
these doodles that she had done,
Yeah.
and she sent them all to me, and I was like, these are amazing. And I, we talked about what I would be able to use and what I couldn't use, and she basically was like, I don't care. So I'm using as much as I can,
That's
and
awesome.
the artwork. I mean, she's if this gets funded and we have a little extra after the cost of printing everything,
Hmm.
then I'm going to kick some of it back over to her because, I mean, the artwork is gorgeous and she deserves it.
Definitely. Yeah. That's really cool. So, um, so you've always wanted to do this box set, and the time was now because kind of the series has been wrapping up. Why? I guess what inspired you to bring this to Kickstarter? You've run a few other campaigns, um, and Kickstarter just seemed like the way to go for this.
Yeah. Yeah, it just seemed natural. Like I said before, I can't afford to pay for all of this out of pocket. So if there's
Yeah.
enough interest, I've put a lot of work into it, but there
Hmm.
has to be enough interest, just like with any book that we write, right? Like
Yeah,
you can write a book and you can publish it, but if nobody's interested, you're not going to make anything.
for sure.
Um, so Kickstarter gives me the ability to make this set and put it all together, assuming that there's enough interest out there. And I really am crossing all my fingers and toes that there are, because I've been working really hard on this for a really long time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I know before we hit record, you told me you've been working on this for quite a few months and
Yeah.
putting it all together. Though, I mean, it's and and I mean, I got the privilege of seeing the preview page that you've done up for it, and it looks incredible. Like you put tons and tons of hours of work into it, and I think that it definitely shows in the product.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I added a bunch of other stuff onto it too, so you can get like there's sticker packs and pins, and you can actually get like one of the tribute bracelets from the Powers Legacy series, and there's power stones, and so I have like all kinds of fun little other things that people can get with the books too.
That's awesome. Does it take a lot of time to source these things? Like you're finding, like you're getting the pins found, you're getting the, obviously the stones and that sort of thing. Like, how are you finding all these goodies to give away?
So I the stickers are pretty easy, right? Like
Yeah.
all I have to do is make a design. The same thing with the pins. You make a
Okay.
design, and there's so many companies out there, and so I just looked at all of them to figure
Hmm.
out which one was the most cost efficient, and that was that. And I actually have, I don't know how well you can see it, but here's one of the pins.
Okay. Oh, that's cool. I
So
like that a
that's the
lot.
specialist pin. Um, and anyway, so that part was pretty easy. The finding out some of the other little things like the bracelets and the power stones, and there's actually a an LED light that people can get. It's like a little blue box, but it
Okay.
lights up and it
Oh,
looks like the journal cube that Eugene finds in one of the prequel stories.
that's
And so I got
awesome.
really excited actually. I stumbled across that completely by accident and I was like,
Cool.
how affordable is this? And so
Hmm.
I it was if somebody wants it, then they can have it.
That's great.
So, but Etsy, like I like Etsy because you support other
Oh,
artists, and
that's a good
so
idea.
I
Yeah.
do a lot of browsing on Etsy to kind of think like what kind of neat stuff would be fun to go with this,
Hmm.
and so I've sourced a lot of stuff from Etsy too.
So no, this isn't the first Kickstarter campaign you've run. You've run a couple others. Um, what have you learned from those previous Kickstarter campaigns that you're bringing into this one?
Um, Specifically about Kickstarter, two things. One, um, just like with books, you show, don't tell, right? So the
Hmm.
more pictures, the more graphics you put in it, the better, because people just kind of scroll through. And so if they can see things instead of having to read things, it seems to go over better.
Right.
And I've also learned that people on Kickstarter tend to like their spicy stuff a little bit more than my usual readers do.
Hmm.
And so adding some of those bonuses in for Kickstarter books is also it seems to go over well.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Um, and how about for, because I know that like I think your first campaign didn't fund, and then your next ones did. Was there anything I guess that you did differently in order to like ensure that your other ones were successful?
I think that first one that I did, I just didn't know what I was doing.
Okay.
I just put it there and was like, okay, now people will come find it,
Right.
and that's not how it works, right? Like you can't just like publishing a book, you can't just click the button and that's it.
Right.
You have to. It's continuous marketing, continually telling people about it, and engaging with the people that have already backed the project. And I didn't do any of that with that first
Mm,
campaign, which so it's no surprise that that one didn't go well.
right. Yeah. Yeah, and I think, it's easy to look at these campaigns that are set up and that fund, in 5 minutes, and to think, oh well, I'll just throw something on Kickstarter and there you go. It'll be that easy. But I think we learn in this game that nothing's easy as people make it look to
No,
be.
no. In
Just
fact, Miller's book, I don't think that one didn't get funded right away. That one took a little while.
yeah,
Um, but then the Kingdom of Tides one was like that. I mean,
yeah,
I got up to get myself a cup of coffee and came back and it was funded, and I
that's
was like,
awesome.
what just happened?
Yeah. So what do you attribute that difference to for that campaign from, let's say, the Miller campaign that did fund but funded closer to the end?
Um, One, the graphics. I mean, I did have more graphics on Miller than I had on that first campaign for sure,
Hmm.
and they looked better. But I still didn't have nearly as many as I had on the Kingdom of Tides.
Okay.
So I think that the graphics made a difference. But I also think that on Kickstarter, fantasy tends to go over better in Kingdom of Tides, even though it takes place in the same universe.
Hmm.
Um, it reads and looks more like a fantasy
Right.
than Miller's story did.
Makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm asking completely for selfish reasons. So, but hopefully people can learn something from it too. Um, you had mentioned that Kickstarter likes spicy stories a little bit more, and I know your original Power series was marketed as a YA series. So, how has your readership evolved with your writing, and have most of your readers kind of followed along with the journey, or like how have you found that dynamic of switching between YA and adult?
It's strange, even for me as a writer.
Mm.
I'm My first couple of forays into it, I wrote them and I was like, wow, that was really good. And then I went back and read them and I was like, oh, that's terrible. And then I deleted the whole thing and wrote something else.
Mm.
Um, but I think that my readers overall have, some of them are not receptive to it, and that's fine. And other ones are more receptive to it. Like, so everybody has their own preferences. I've definitely gotten emails from people that have said, I'm not interested in this. I'm
Mm.
like, well, okay, that's fine. You
Yeah.
don't have to be interested in everything that I do, but you don't have to abandon ship either, right? Like the ship isn't sinking. This is just one thing. Um,
Right.
so I think that the progression has gone pretty well. And some of the spicy stuff that I've added into these books for the box set are still not going to be in the original books, even when they get the new facelift on them for the 5th anniversary. They're still going to be the original young adult books. They're still selling pretty well as young adults, and so I don't want to rock the boat with it. So it's going to
Yeah.
be a special thing that's only going to be for Kickstarter.
Right. Okay. And have you found the opposite the case too? Then, like where people are finding you through, let's say, Kingdom of Tides, if they back that campaign, and going back and discovering the rest of your work, even though it's a little less steamy than some of your newer stuff.
I don't know. I don't know how to track that.
Okay.
I wish that I could find a way to track it. I wish there was some
Yeah.
way. I do think that as the campaign for Kingdom of Tides was running, that I saw a an increase. I don't know if I call it a spike, but
Okay.
I saw an increase in sales in the other Powers books. So
Oh, that's
I
cool.
can't say that there's not some kind of correlation there, but I
Right.
can't prove it definitively either.
Yeah, for sure. Um, that's cool. But like, did you see that spike kind of carry on, or was it kind of really targeted around that campaign period?
Um, I think I think it took about a month or so for it to kind of peter out after the campaign ended. So um, I don't really. I guess I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I realize these things are hard to determine.
They
So I'm
can be hard.
just
There's no
curious.
way for us to track it, right?
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
wish that there was, that I could just add some kind of special link in there so that I knew this is where it was coming from,
Hmm.
but I don't.
Yeah. I mean, there probably is a way, but it'd probably be more. It might be more work than it's worth if they were clicking from the book. But I'm sure a lot of readers are gonna finish the book and then like go to their computer and order, and you would never know that either. So it'd
But
be
there is carryover from one campaign to the next sometimes. You know,
right.
if you catch people with one, there's a pretty good likelihood that they're going to continue to follow through, you know, assuming that they can afford to.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's I think Kickstarter is good with that. Whereas if you book one author's campaign, you'll get emailed about the next one. I don't know if I don't know what that back end process looks like, but is that automatic or is that something that you're um, manually doing on the back end?
So I think that they automatically do that because I've backed
Okay.
other authors that I know I don't follow,
Yeah.
and I've gotten emails that have told me that they've launched a new campaign.
Okay.
So I think that Kickstarter automatically does it. They're like, hey, if you liked that thing that person did, then you probably will like this thing that person did. But I do also, I'm very open about these things too, and so the people who backed Kingdom of Tides, they already know what's coming down the pipeline. Um,
Right.
I've already told them what's coming. They're aware, and the hardcover that they ordered actually has the same reversible dust jacket. So
Okay.
they're getting a little bit of a bonus with it where they can set it next to the box set on the bookshelf and it has the same continuous art on it.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Is there? And so I think we're gonna be launching this episode the same day that your Kickstarter campaign goes up. So if
Mm-hmm.
people are listening um, and are interested, definitely head over to Kickstarter. What's the easiest way for them to find your campaign?
Um, it's actually on the front page of my website. So if they go to starzdavies.com, it's like right there up near the top. It has the Kingdom of Tides, and then it also has a link to the Powers Universe campaign.
Cool, cool. Yeah, and I'll definitely link that below. We're not done yet, but I just wanted to make sure people, if people were itching to to head over there, definitely do so because you've got some time sensitive items as well.
Yeah, so the as a bonus for people who back the project early, there is a note that in Invasion that Zephyr sends back home because he's not going home yet, and he sends a note back home to his cousin, I guess, and you never get to find out what she reads in that note. You get to see her reaction to it, but you don't find out what he actually wrote to her. And so people who back on the first day of the campaign are going to get a copy of that letter. They're going to get to see what he actually wrote. And I also have a giveaway that I'm running during the campaign. And I draw names after the campaign is over. And so anyone who backs the campaign automatically gets an entry in the giveaway. And the first week, you can get bonus entries. And I have all kinds of really fun stuff lined up. Like there's the King's Crown. I have a crown.
Mhm.
And if we reach certain stretch goals, I'm going to be adding bonuses on to the giveaway. So um, Paige's tribute bracelet, she gets an upgrade that the other girls don't have. And so I'm actually going to have that.
Cool.
And it's not a cheapy little bracelet. It's a very nice emerald encrusted
Nice.
bracelet. And then there's the bracelets that Drake and Gavin give each other in the series.
Mhm.
That was based on a real thing, and I'm going to give away those if we
Cool.
reach a certain stretch goal. And I have copies of the audiobooks to give away. So there's going to be a
Wow.
lot of extra bonuses that people can get when they back the project.
That's awesome. You've really put together like a Brandon Sanderson level of campaign with this project. And
I don't
you've
know
done
about
it
that.
but I mean, well, you think about it with the Kickstarter campaign that he came out with. He had four. I mean, he did four books, and I know there was some extras and stuff. I think that were a part of that as well. But I mean, he has a team. Like he's got a like a publishing company behind him putting this stuff together, and this is just you. And you put together like just a phenomenal package of stuff for your fans, which I just think is really cool. Um,
Well, I tried to think of, what kind of stuff would I think is neat?
yeah.
If I were in their place, what would I want? And so I actually the stickers were originally going to be temporary tattoos. I
Okay.
thought it was really cool because in the original Powers series, he talks about the tattoos that people have.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, what if I had those as temporary tattoos? That'd be
Right.
so cool."
Yeah.
And then my daughter she's 12, right? She's read
Hmm.
all of the books.
Yeah.
She hasn't read Invasion yet. She just finished Insurrection. But she was like, "No,
Oh,
don't give
really?
people tattoos." And I was like, but because of the books. And she said, "No, give them stickers because then they can put them inside of their phone cases and they can have the
Hmm.
stickers on display." And I was like, "Okay." That's actually a really good idea because she does that. She has a bunch of anime stickers.
Right.
She doesn't take the backing off of them. She just puts them
Oh.
inside of the case, and then she can
Uh,
switch them out however she wants to
okay.
just
Oh, that's a
show
cool
stuff
idea.
off. So
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's actually a really neat idea. I like that.
Hmm.
Okay, fine, we'll do stickers.
and it gives people something a little more permanent, I guess. To show really it's advertising for your work as well, which is kind of nice. But
Right.
it is cool for people to have who enjoyed the series.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, what other advice do you have for writers who are looking to launch a Kickstarter campaign of their own?
Um, well, I already mentioned graphics,
Yeah.
um, and a lot of graphics. I don't know if I can emphasize that point enough. That seems to be a really big deal. Um,
Yeah.
having you have to have a very low entry level, right, for people who just want to back the campaign, but they can't afford a big investment. Everybody has
Yeah.
different abilities, right? Um, so you want to make sure that you have something very small that lets people in the door and lets them show their support.
Hmm.
But then don't be afraid to go big. But when you go big, try to limit how many of those big packages you offer because it can get overwhelming too.
Right.
Um, and
And it also offers some, a sense of exclusivity, right? Like if there's
right,
only 5 or 10 of these big ticket items,
right,
then people know they're getting, limited, something
right. They're getting
limited,
something
right?
really special.
Yeah.
And then engaging with people, right? Like you can't just click the button to launch it and walk away. I learned that the hard way. Um, you have to engage with the people who have already backed the project.
Hmm.
And if people have mailing lists, don't be afraid. You should be proud of the work that you've done.
Yeah.
And if people are on your mailing list, they're there for a reason. And if they don't want to support you because you're promoting your stuff, then they probably don't belong on the mailing list anyway.
Yeah.
And
Right.
it's hard when when people jump ship, but it happens. It's just part of doing business. And then social media, which I admit I'm terrible at. I go through these fits of darkness, right? Like I've entered into a cave of darkness, and then I emerge, and I'm like, oh, hey, people, I'm still alive.
Yeah.
Um, I'm very bad at keeping up with that, but I try.
Yeah, I think a lot happens with a lot of, especially authors. I mean, we're trying to wear so many hats, and social media, especially once you get into TikTok and stuff, it is such an all-consuming practice that at some point something has to go, and that is, I mean, usually the thing that is easiest to let go of.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
love TikTok. Don't get me wrong, but it's very easy to get lost in it really quick.
yeah, yeah. Their algorithm is good for a reason. It gets you sucked into a rabbit hole, and suddenly an hour's gone by. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I do want to ask you about your emails a little bit though, because I know for your Kingdom of Tides campaign, you were emailing like every other day, if not every day. How much of that did you have pre-written before the campaign even started, and how much were you writing on kind of on the fly?
So I did it two different ways. For Miller's campaign, it was every day because that was what I had been told by somebody else to do, and then I felt like it was too much. I wrote all of them in advance.
Mm-hmm.
I had everything already written and saved so that I could just ship them out and make adjustments wherever adjustments needed to be made. Um, but I felt like it was too much, and I think that there's a fine line that you have to walk, and you have to kind of gauge it based on the way that people seem to be interacting or reacting to
Okay.
what you're sending them.
Right.
So if you are sending something out, if you're sending an email every day to people,
Mm-hmm.
it and you see a lot of them jumping ship, then it's probably a sign that you need to back off.
Right.
Like I said, you're going to lose a couple, but if you suddenly have an entire lifeboat go overboard, that's a sign. Um,
Yeah. Right.
but then, so for the Kingdom of Tides, I didn't email as often. I think that I did it once a week
Okay.
for that one, unless I hit a stretch goal. And then I was like, hey, we just did this thing. You should check it out if you haven't checked it
Right.
out yet, right? So,
Okay. That's good to know because I think, and yeah, I think I mixed the two campaigns up there when I was talking when I said every day because I think because I did read that the Kickstart Your Novel book that is by I forget the author's name now.
Yeah, no, I read
Um,
that same book.
yeah, and I think on there they did say every day, like you should be emailing them out every day, and I thought that was a lot.
It is a lot. And I
Yeah,
think that it's too much for people who are following you. And you can't assume that everyone is even going to be interested, right? So, what did
right.
they say? It takes 7 times of seeing something before you decide whether you're going to make the purchase.
Yeah.
So, I think that taking that concept and applying it to how frequently you email people about the campaign
Hmm.
is effective.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think especially like even if you have people that aren't unsubscribing, you don't want them to tune it out either.
Right.
Um, if you have seven, or if you have more impactful emails than frequent emails is probably a better way to go, I would
Right.
think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. So, is there anything about your Kickstarter campaign that we have not touched on that you would like to share?
Let's see. We talked about the giveaway. I have some upgrades lined up if I get lucky enough to get that far with stretch goals.
Hmm.
So for people who aren't familiar with Kickstarter, with stretch goals are above and beyond what you set for your goal. So, for instance, this one it's got a pretty high goal just because of the cost of printing so many sets of books.
Yeah.
But if we hit that goal, then I have what are bonuses for the books, with the stretch goals, where if you hit, X amount of dollars above that, then this other thing is going to be added and it's given to everyone. So it doesn't matter what level you're at for the campaign, you still get the bonus goodies.
Hmm.
Um, and I have some other bonuses lined up for it, like foiling for the covers, and there's a lot of artwork inside, but it costs a lot to print that artwork in color. And so
Definitely.
if we hit the stretch goal to be able to print those in color, then I think that it's really going to bring a lot of those images to life, because some of them, there's this gorgeous one of Gavin standing in the cave of Power Stones,
Hmm.
and the image, everything is glowing green.
Oh wow. Nice.
Um, can't see that in a black and white image, right? So it just looks like
Right.
him standing in a cave. um,
Yeah.
so
Fair.
things like that. Like I want to be able to bring them to color, but it's a stretch goal for the book. So if we
Right.
reach that goal, then we get to see that in all its glory.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah. So just something that if you hit a certain level, that you're able to just make the final product extra special, which I
Right.
think is great. Because you have the baseline, and I mean, yeah, because printing color that does add a significant cost to the project overall.
Right. And it's not like a small thing either. It's
No.
because I think that each book I add increasingly more images because there's more and more of them that I like. I had a hard time actually making final selections, but I tried to line things up and not like bog down each book in one spot where like there's a whole bunch of images. So I tried to spread it out,
Yeah,
which means you have to be intelligent about selection. And yeah, so I would love to see them come in full color, but honestly, at this point, I'd just be happy if I can print these sets.
for sure. Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, especially for you, you want to have these sets for yourself too. Because I think that would be a pretty special thing to have on your own shelf.
Yeah, and it's a nice
Yeah.
ribbon to tie on everything now that it's all complete.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. Well, I hope that it all goes well for you. I'm really excited for to see the campaign unfold.
Yeah, me too.
So I know this Kickstarter has been taking all of your bandwidth for quite some time now. But what can readers expect from you next? Do you have any other projects that you have on the go right now?
Always.
Yeah.
So I I am hoping very soon. I was actually hoping this week, but it didn't happen. To start working on the next series. Um, Life got in the way, as it tends to do,
Yeah.
but I have I've already written a bunch of songs. I don't know how good the songs are. I'm not a lyricist, so but I wrote a bunch of songs for this fantasy world that are kind of based around the gods and some of their myths. And I wrote a couple of like super short stories that are just like the lore of the land, and I have the histories of the different kingdoms. And so when I put it all together today, it came out to be like 100 pages of
Oh wow.
just songs and religion and history and myths.
Wow.
So I'm very excited about it. I don't, you can't see it right now. I actually have it. I have the map already made for this world.
Oh
There's my
wow.
map,
Oh, that is cool.
um, and I am
Did you get
super
that
excited.
did you get that commissioned? Like
No, I made that.
you made that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So there's an app online. It's called Incarnate,
Okay. Yeah, I've heard of that.
and it's map making software, and people use it for D&D, but
Hmm.
I used it for this. Um,
That's
and
great.
you can do like random world generation and all kinds of edits and add things in, and I had a lot of fun playing with it. But yeah, so I've got the map made. I've got three of the main characters kind of fleshed out, and I've got the history done. So I am I'm ready to get cooking.
Yeah. So you've got yeah, so you got everything really planned out before you're even starting to draft.
Well, sort of.
Okay.
I'm a little bit of a plotter pantser,
Hmm.
so I plot things and then end up flying by the seat of my pants anyway.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
so I don't try to go too tight with what my direction is. I just have a general direction and let the story take me there.
Hmm.
But it's going to be a noble, bright fantasy.
Oh, excellent. Well, I look forward to that as well. So I know you've answered this question once before. If you're able to give us a different answer, that would be great. But this is the greatest podcast in the multiverse. So can you give us can you tell us about a time how another decision in your life might have affected a different version of your life?
I think if I had started writing when I originally had wanted to start writing, which was a long time ago, um, so this fantasy world would have actually been much different.
Hmm.
This is based on what I had kind of played around with a long, long time ago and never fully brought it into reality. Um, so I think that if I had done that, that I would be much more entrenched in writing at this point in my life.
Yeah, and probably, I mean, you would have had, I mean, be a very different story, obviously, than what the
Yeah.
final product
Oh, it
was.
would have been. It would have been a
Yeah.
very different story. Like the map isn't even the same. Like it's so there's some of the cities are the same. A little bit of the
Hmm.
cultural stuff is the same, and two of the characters, three of the characters are kind of the same.
Okay.
Um, but otherwise, yeah, it was very different.
So did you have a full manuscript written by the time you got to Ordinary? I think we talked about this last time, but I can't remember now.
A full manuscript for Ordinary.
For
What?
yeah, or for sorry, for which book were you talking about? Like
So this was a fantasy series that I had
oh
played around with a long, long time ago,
oh, so is this
long
sort
before Ordinary was even a thing
okay.
in my brain. Um, and I used to do the National Novel Writing Month, and it was the thing that I did every year. And
Okay.
so I wrote a bunch of the novels, but when I go back and look at them now, they were they were awful, like just hot dumpster fires. Um,
Yeah.
so I'm kind of glad I didn't go too far with it, but at the same time, I don't know. I think it's always had a place in my heart, though, and I always knew that I was going to come back around to it in some way. And
Hmm.
so here I am. I'm ready. I'm
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I'm glad that you got to where you are now because I've enjoyed your works thus far. So
well. Thank
I am
you.
excited to see
I like
what.
yours too.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, lots more to come. That's once you get going, I feel like it's impossible to stop that train. So
Yeah. Onward and upward.
wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Starr. I will link your Kickstarter in the show notes as well as the link to your website and social media. Is there anything else you would like to tell our audience before we go?
You should definitely go check the campaign out. Even if you can't back it, I think that people will just really enjoy browsing through what is on that page.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, it is a very well laid out campaign. So I think it's a great one to even just have a look at if you're interested in Kickstarter campaigns
Yep.
whatsoever. So yeah, thank you very much for joining me again. It's been
Thank you.
great having you.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining me. If you enjoyed the show, like and subscribe on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Greatest Podcast in the Multiverse. As well, you can help support the show by supporting me on Patreon. For as little as $5 a month, you can get early access to the show, as well as submit your questions for my upcoming guests. I hope to see you next time. Bye now.